3 days into free agency, and we still have some big names that are out there that have not signed yet. Predominantly, we have one at the quarterback position with Russell Wilson. We're not going to talk about Aaron Rodgers because that is a whole discussion of itself where everyone's getting sick and tired of that being dragged out. So we're going to be talking about Russell Wilson. And it was reported last night that, or yesterday, I should say, that Russell Wilson is visiting with the Cleveland Browns and the New York Giants. Both of them, right off the bat, are not great options. No doubt about that. That is pretty bad if those are the two bare minimum spots. There was speculation that maybe the Tennessee would be interested in him. That one you could put in the same category as these two other teams. It's just they're all bad situations. There's not really going to be a playoff team that's going to be asking for Russell Wilson because either they have that position locked, or for other teams they're looking elsewhere, or worser teams they're looking at drafting one in the future. And certainly enough, Cleveland can be in play for a quarterback second overall, as well as the Giants. But I think for right now, for the Giants wise, they are more of a win now mentality, and the Browns are, I think, just trying to find just a bridge quarterback. I did throw that out there with my mock draft that they will take a quarterback, but again, knowing Cleveland as well for the other aspect of it, they're probably gung ho on Deshaun Watson and just looking for a 1 year bridge quarterback with Russell Wilson. But I did put my 2 cents out there, and I did write, if I had to pick out of the two places, again, both aren't great places, but if I had to pick one, I would lean towards the Browns. They have a better coach and a bit more pieces. I trust the Browns more to turn around this season. Either way, it's going to be a 1 year, maybe 2 years at most. And it's probably going to be a likely thing. It's going to be a 1 year deal, what he had with Pittsburgh. It's, the Russell Wilson that we knew in Seattle is far gone. We look at his past season, and it was overall, especially towards the end, just very, very, lackluster to say the least. Of the offense could not score, and once it got evident into the playoffs against Baltimore, it was just a mismatch from the start. Baltimore was a far superior team, especially offensively. You look at the stats. Again, he didn't start the season. He missed I think it was 6-7 weeks into the season. He missed at the very least 6, but very below average stats I would put for Russell Wilson's, his grade. He had 16 passing touchdowns, over 2,400 yards passing, 5 touchdowns. Again, very bare minimum. And again, the offense in general was struggling throughout, as of towards the end of the season, just kicking field goals constantly. And you look at the advanced stats for passing, nothing really jumps out at you. Maybe just the interceptions with only 5 of them, but outside of that, not too much. He also added 2 rushing touchdowns, so you want to bring that up to 18 total touchdowns. Again, just very, very mediocre for his standard. Overall grade, if you do want to put input on this for Pro Football Focus, is a 77.5, which ranked 20th in the NFL. He ranked 23rd in passing with 74.9. Rushing grade, if you do care about that as well, 71.3 or 27th in the NFL. But then going back to, again, both the destinations, I was kind of looking long term because I'm always used to doing that for quarterbacks or just players in general where they're looking long term. And I was going to mention out that, hey, the Browns have a worse salary cap in the next few years than the New York Giants. But again, even if you want to project that to 2 years, it doesn't really matter. We're just kind of relatively looking at one season with it. So yeah, I would lean towards the Cleveland Browns. The main thing I really want to emphasize is just the coaching. I trust Stefanski more than Brian Daboll in this spot. Stefanski is a 2-time Coach of the Year. Brian Daboll is a 1-time Coach of the Year, one in his first season with the Giants. But last year 2 years ago in 2023, I think really showed you that where Stefanski somehow got this team to the playoffs. I think they ended up 10-7 with at the very least 5 different starting quarterbacks. We had Joe Flacco, we had Watson, we had Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I think we had Walker. I'm sure there's probably 1 or 2 other quarterbacks I'm missing out of that list, but it was just a carousel of quarterbacks that they somehow got to the playoffs with Joe Flacco at the end of it. Got blown out by a rookie, C.J. Stroud, in Houston, the wild card game. But overall, it was shocking that they even made it this far. This past year was not a replication of that. Deshaun Watson did not do anything, got injured once again. Jameis Winston gave you some flashes, but a whole lot of turnovers, and it didn't really lead anywhere, with them being now the second overall pick in this year's draft. So I look at that situation as well as the pieces. Even though the Giants have the better receiver on their team with Malik Nabers, I do like the pieces a little bit more with the Cleveland Browns. It's not by that much, but it's a little bit more with Jerry Jeudy, who revived his career there, had a career year this past season with over 1,200 yards receiving, 4 touchdowns. You had David Njoku, who's always good for at least 500 yards. He had 5 touchdowns. He is a at worst a solid tight end, but a good tight end, no doubt. So you have two pieces right there. I do think as well a person that might step up a little bit more in the situation, unless we'll see them maybe draft a receiver early on, not in the first round, but maybe in the second or third round, or add someone in free agency, is Cedric Tillman. I like his size, 6'3", 215, even though he hasn't really panned out thus far. He was taken in the third round back in 2023, but he did have a better year compared to last year, but not by that much in terms of the receiving yards. It went from 224 his rookie year to 339, but he scored three more touchdowns than his rookie season, 0 his rookie year, 3 this season, on 29 receptions and 49 targets, 11 games played, 6 started. So I do look at that. I do think, no doubt, again, unless we'll see the rest of free agency or in the draft, they'll add a piece. I presume that Cedric Tillman will be the wide receiver too, and definitely get a bigger load on the offense as well. Outside of that, it's pretty bare bones. That's relatively it. Again, both situations are not good. You do have the Giants too. Wan'Dale Robinson too. I also want to mention him. I don't want to forget him because he also is a solid wide receiver. And he did step up as well a little bit for the New York Giants. So it goes both ways. I think it's very I don't think it's like 100%. This is a much better team. Both of them, you can argue, are good destinations, but once again, they are both. I should say they're both good situations, but end of the day, they're both bad place to go to. So I don't think anyone is really wrong if you say the Giants are a better spot for him, the Browns are a better spot for him. They're all pretty much mirror each other, really. For the running side of it, I do like Dante Foreman and Jerome Ford. I think especially Ford, very explosive when he comes in and has to take over for Nick Chubb. And then for the New York Giants, you have Gray, you have Singletary. So again, it's a toss up. Maybe you would say overall, Devin Singletary is the slightly better running back out of those 4 I mentioned. So maybe you get the slight edge to the Giants. But like I said, it's a toss up. Both these places are not great. To me, it really comes down to sorry, before I get back to the coaching, the defense as well. I think they have a little more piece on defense with Myles Garrett. You have Ward as well. So and Greg Newsome, another solid corner. So you do have better pieces in place. The other players that we're kind of worried about too, the linebacker position is, if I can get to that, is Jeremiah Owusu. I'm not even pronouncing the rest of his name because I'm going to butcher it, from Notre Dame, who unfortunately suffered a neck injury. And I know at that point they were kind of worried it was maybe a career-ending injury, but he is a good linebacker for them, no doubt about that. So we also mentioned Denzel Ward. We talked about Greg Newsome. And after that, not too much outside of that. Devin Bush, if that even means it, not that that's a great player either, but it's also another name that kind of somewhat stands out. Okay player at most. So again, and you also have Dexter Lawrence on the New York Giants. Kayvon Thibodeaux, who you hope he kind of turns around this season after having a down third year. So again, overall, it's a toss up for the rosters. I would just lean to, like I said in the beginning, with Kevin Stefanski. I trust him more in the situation as opposed to Brian Daboll because it's been downhill since the first year. As opposed to Stefanski, it's a roller coaster, up and down seasons. As opposed to, for Brian Daboll, there's no really indication it's going to turn around. You look at his first year there, 9-7-1, really shocked everybody, making it to the playoffs, and even more, beating the Minnesota Vikings in the wild card game at Minnesota. They eventually get blown out in the divisional round for the Eagles, and it was downhill since. They were nowhere near close to making the playoffs those next 2 seasons. And I do think that both him and the GM were going to get fired. And, maybe typical Giants fashion, they bring him back for another season. But I do believe this is their final year. It's a win-now mentality. They certainly they can go for a quarterback. I don't have him in my latest mock draft going for a quarterback because it just emphasizing that win-now mindset. They are in position, as well as Russell Wilson with Aaron Rodgers, which he's going to drag that out forever. So, they're a mix from both of them for right now with Rodgers and Russell Wilson. But does that really push the needle for either of them going there? No. Even though, Brian Daboll as an offensive mind is great, and we did see that with Buffalo with Josh Allen and what he did there. And again, first year with the New York Giants being creative. It's, again, been downhill since. I really don't trust them to also really draft well in the first round. I think overall their picks have been misses or mediocre at most. The only one really is just the knockout of the park right now is Malik Neighbors. Again, Thibodeaux you're not sure about him. Neal has not really panned out as well. You go down the list. Like I said, all the players they try to bring in the draft, Didn't really do too much in free agency besides Javon Holland, who we just signed not too long ago or yesterday. So again, you look at the trajectory of both coaches for the last few seasons. One's up and down, so you can get that lucky season and make the playoffs or barely miss it and be, 9-8, 8-9, or the New York Giants who are just going to completely fall flat. Even in a weaker conference, they just don't have the pieces around them. Even with the person I did, mock with them, which was Travis Hunter, who is a very versatile player, and you want to put him maybe more so at the wide receiver position if they do choose to pair him up with Blake Neighbors. Even with the secondary, that's been bad as well. He can only do so much with that, so that is enticing. But as of right now, I can't use maybes, ifs if that guy's on that team. As of right now, as it stands, they only have Blake Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson. And for me, the coaching, I just don't trust Brian Dable. I do project them to get fired, at some point this season. I don't. It's gonna be very shocking if he makes it through the whole year without being fired. So if that one, I lean towards Stefanski, who, yes, it maybe isn't as consistent as you like, but has shown the capability of, hey, he can put this team together. And again, maybe you can have some wild run where you're 8-9, 9-8, and I think that would be certainly more of a success in this past year. Disappointing not making the playoffs, but a better situation for Russell Wilson to be in, and maybe going to catch fire. He has a better year with there, and the pieces they have a little bit better, I think, overall than New York Giants. So that's where I do project Russell to go to. I don't really see another team going after him. Like I said, Tennessee was an option as well, but that's not really great at all either. So again, that's my thoughts on it. Russell Wilson going to the Cleveland Browns. We'll see what happens. Hopefully, this today, as the day to record on Thursday, or the next coming days, we find out where Russell Wilson lands, and hopefully as well. Side note with Aaron Rodgers and what happens with him.